There should be two titles for this particular video, and I don't know what the title's going to be called, but here's what I want to speak to. Two really important points. Knowing your partner's sexual history, which is also knowing your own sexual history, and then permission to have sex, permission to make love, permission to be sexually intimate, and what that actually looks like, and practically what would that look like and feel like in a tangible way when you're having sex or you're about to have sex. Let's go into that. So the importance of knowing your partner's sexual history and knowing your own, like really exploring your sexual history. And what does that mean? That means looking back at your very early sexual experiences, irrelevant whether you're 12 years old or 10 years old or 24 years old. And yes, in my primary school, I wasn't. I started what would be considered pretty late. My first sexual experience was a little before I was 18, like 17 and some, in a few months, right? And kids were having sex in my primary school about 11 years old. So really quite young, right? From my perspective, at least. And that was shocking to me. Not shocking in a, oh, I'm judging you way. Shocking to me like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Like I was really sexually immature. I bloomed very, very late. And then I was one of those people that bloomed late and then sort of I have an extreme personality and sort of went all the way into it. I mean, I had sex before I masturbated. And the interesting thing was that I had been exposed to porn through my friends in the community there in the suburb by their older brothers, like at probably the age of, I don't know, 14 or 15. But I had so much shame and disconnected from my sexuality for so many different reasons. And so what's really important for you, for all of us, I believe, is to understand and know and connect to our sexual history. What happened when we first were exposed to sex, or images of sex, or rolling video of sex, or seeing someone. Maybe you walked into your parents having sex. What was the reaction in your body? What did your body inform you in those moments? What did it let you know? Did it let you know that sex and the exploration of sex was safe? Did it let you know that it was dirty? Did it let you know that it's scary? Like, what were the feelings, the sensations in your body, right? Somatically, what did you experience? Were you repelled by it, or did you move and gravitate towards it? And then how were you met if there were other people in that space? And how did those sexual experiences ultimately form how you see yourself, your self-worth, the value that you give to the world, how you give and receive love, how you interact with sexuality, your own sexuality, your personality, your sexual expression, your overall expression? Do you hold back in life? And how do you view women or men? How do you view people? Do you view them as purely sexual objects? Are you only interested in sexual gratification? Are you only interested in completion energy? In other words, ejaculation, orgasm, and the whole purpose of being intimate with someone is simply to have a peak experience that then ends and you then move away from? Do you have particular patterns around sexuality? And I know I'm asking you a lot of questions, right? But you can pause the video, you can think about it, you can write some notes down, but take your time with this. What are your sexual preferences? What are your sexual fantasies? You're just really getting to know who you are. You're getting to know how you relate to sex, how it drives you, how it drives your behavior when you're with someone that you want to have sex with, or when you're with someone that you don't want to have sex with. Notice the discrepancies or the differences in your behavior, your attitudes, your feelings towards that person, your feelings towards yourself. Are you in sex to just get something for yourself and it becomes this hyper selfish activity? Or are you all about the giving when it comes to sexuality and you struggle to receive and receive yourself? What's your body image like when it comes to your sexuality? I haven't even got into the juicy stuff yet, by the way. We're still just focusing on you holistically, greatly or greater, at a greater capacity, understanding, knowing, connecting to yourself. Are there wounds around sexuality and how you express sexually? That's also important too. And not only are there wounds, but are there joys when it comes to sexuality? Do you feel you have a healthy sexuality? How have you explored that? Have you done courses? Have you read books? Are you very open with your partner, your sexual partner, your longer term partner, and asking for what you want? Do you struggle to request for what your needs are? I mean, many years I struggled to request what my needs were. And honestly, for my long-term partnerships, and because I had blocks around intimacy, and there's still sometimes armor and walls in my heart, around intimacy and around connecting to those parts of me that were really wounded as a little child. But in the past, I would remedy that through novelty and variety, through cheating, through visiting prostitutes. And then I was able to ask, because it was a different environment. It was an environment where, funnily enough, I felt safer because there was so much novelty. The novelty and the hormonal rush took over the inhibitions, took over the fears, took over the being me, and I could wear those masks with greater efficacy. But being in a longer term relationship in my past, it was more difficult to hide myself, and that felt very dangerous for me. Intimacy wasn't safe for me. And of course, I didn't know that at the time. I figured this out and unpacked this a lot later, but it informed how I behaved with my partners and how I saw myself and how I saw them. And I was hyper protective of this little boy and these wounded parts of me, so I would project massively, and that was usually through aggression, passive aggressive behavior, being short, being impatient, being sharp, being controlling, being rigid, being domineering in the relationship, verbally and emotionally. And so I can see, and I look back at that now, and I have been looking back at that for a number of years, I can see how I behaved was just so tumultuous and turbulent in the relationship. I was unpredictable, I was uncertain, I was volatile, therefore I was unsafe. And all I was doing was acting out and playing out what I really feared the most, which was not being safe, right? And we do that. Now, still haven't got into the juicy parts. We're getting there. Knowing your partner's sexual history. So when you know your own sexual history at a greater capacity and you understand your own connection to your own sexuality, not only are you able to be more open and intimate and transparent and honest, which is, these are values that people are so much, they need this in relationship and they value it deeply, right? When you're able to be that person, that honest person, that transparent person, have real and meaningful conversations and be yourself, be truthful, you become safer as a person. And so when you know yourself, you're able to lead and have those types of conversations, particularly if you're in that masculine embodiment. And when you're leading these conversations, guess what is happening? You're giving permission to the other person through your own courage and your own certainty and assertiveness, not domination, but assertiveness, to also give them permission to share as well, especially if they can meet you with compassion, non-judgment, and you can reciprocate that back to them as well. Now they have permission to share at a deeper level, and you can ask questions. And you may ask, is it okay to ask you questions about your past and your sexuality when you're engaging in a longer term relationship or even in a casual encounter? You may have these conversations. Tell me about you. Tell me about your relationship to sex. Have you been wounded in sex before? Is it okay to talk about this? Do I have permission to talk about this? Do I have permission to ask questions? And you can preface that by saying, hey, we don't have to go anywhere where you don't want to go if you don't feel ready. But I want to get to know you. I want to be safe for you. And in order to be safe for you, if I get to know you more and get to know what is safe for you and what isn't, because we may have different versions of what is safe, then I can be that safe person for you. We don't have to go into any terrains that are unknown, right? And so these are why you're having these conversations. Because then when your partner relaxes and they feel safe with you and they are very clear on what is safe for them, what is not, what they're willing to experience, what they're not, what their fantasies and dreams are, what their edges are and so forth, and you get to know this. And it's not just about talking, it's about feeling each other's nervous systems as you're having these edgy, difficult, challenging conversations. It can be deeply, deeply liberating. So now you're understanding, I'm knowing a lot more about my partner. I know that they were abused sexually when they were 10, then again at 15, and then again at 20. Or I know that my partner walked into their parents having sex and it really challenged their view of the world and their view of themselves, and they struggled to then connect to their parents in a more intimate way, and it really affected the partners they choose in their lives. They have awareness of it, but they haven't moved through that. So what can I be? What questions can I ask to support them? And you may simply just ask, hey, how can I support you in this? And sometimes we don't know our sexual history. We repress it. Okay, you've got to be really cautious and careful of that as well. So before you have these conversations, you're asking permission, and maybe you're even having, people in place that can support you, counselors, psychologists, coaches, sex therapists, etc. If you're really wanting to go deep in this, because some people don't know what happened to them or the experiences they had. And then bringing it up, especially if they're in a safe place with this new partnership that's also exciting at the same time, they feel safe enough to start remembering things, and it comes up, and that can be really daunting for you if you don't know or you're not able to hold that space. And so you're just very mindful of how you ask these questions, of course, right? So now you're getting to know your partner's sexual history and you're understanding who they are, where they come from and what their needs are and what their preferences are. What often happens is you're now bonding at a deeper level. You're connecting at a deeper level. You're sharing at a deeper level. It's far more profound, right? And you're being more honest and intimate with each other, and you're opening with each other, and you start to deepen your care for each other because you're proud of your courage. You're proud of the deep conversations, the difficult conversations that you've had that in the past have probably led to tension and difficulty and avoidance, and then or moving into coping strategies such as it's too much for you, it's too edgy, so you get aggressive, or it's too edgy, so you stonewall and leave. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go there with this one. And so the next piece to this, which is what I spoke about at the beginning, is permission to have sex or permission to even enter. And what that may look like is if a man and woman are having sex and making love, that man may look the partner deep in their eyes and say, is it okay to enter you? Are you ready? And it doesn't just have to be for coitus. It doesn't have to be for penetrative sex. It could be for anything and everything, right? Even kissing. Now, you don't have to ask permission every time you want to be intimate with your partner. You know what arrangements you have. You have agreements in place. Sometimes, if there's a sensitivity there, if there's a difficulty that your partner is facing, but you both still want to be sexually intimate, making that request gives them a moment to just check in their bodies and say, do I really want this? And if they say no, can you be okay with that? Because you also don't want to ask the question if they, and knowing that they may say no, and if they say no, you're going to get all messed up. That's going to cause more trauma. That's going to relive trauma for both of you in different ways. And so these are conversations that you have. These are agreements that you make. These are explorations that you have together and or with other people. What I mean by that is, it could be, sexual playtime with other people and non-monogamous relationships and so forth. But what I mean is with other people is you have actual support that can work you through, professional support that can work you through these edges and sticking points. But there can be great power in knowing your own sexual history, knowing your partner's sexual history, and at times just asking permission. Asking permission to be in that person's space, whatever it may look like, to touch them here, to touch them there. Consent is so fucking underrated. Consent is everything when it comes to intimate safety with each other. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into consent because ultimately this whole thing's about consent, right? But that's a conversation, a video for another time. But try some of this, explore some of these conversations, knowing that you can be safe in them. And so that means that you have to have done a certain level of inner work to be able to have these kinds of conversations. And that also means the same for your partner. And you can explore that with each other and get to know each other at a deeper level. Power and blessings to you.